So next we're going to talk about how to write equations from ellipses. So anytime we write an equation of the ellipse, we will need to know the center, which gives us h and k, our a value, b value, and the direction. And then we're just plugging in the numbers that we know into the correct equation. So similar to circles and parabolas, we are going to do a rough sketch of the given information, and then from there we will figure out the center, a and b value, and the direction. And keep in mind, to find the a or b value, we might have to use the equation c squared equals a squared minus b squared. Okay, so it's just going to depend on the information that we are given. So again, if I start by doing a rough sketch of the information that I'm given, one of the vertices we are going left 7 and then up 2. And then my other vertex we are going to the right 5, up 2. And then for the co-vertices we are going left 1, and then left 1 up 4. Okay, so my center has to be directly in the middle between the two vertices or the two co-vertices. So it doesn't matter which pair we use. So I'm just going to use my co-vertices since they're a little bit closer together. So I'm going from 0 on the y up to 4. So this total distance is 4, which that means halfway through would be the center, so that's going to be at 2 here. So that means that the center is at -1, 2, so that's my h and k. And then I also know my b value, because that's the distance from the center to the co-vertex. Or if we wanted to, we could use this full distance for the minor axis. So because I know that that's 2b, which we said was 4. So then that means that b would have to be 2. And then the distance from vertex to vertex is the major axis, which is a length of 2a. So if I'm going from -7 to 5, I would count a distance of 12. So then if I solve for a, that means a would be 6. And then since my vertices are to the left and right of each other, that tells me that my ellipse is horizontal. So I have my h and k, my a and b, and my direction. So now I can write my equation. So my center, I'm going to have x plus 1 quantity squared over a number plus y minus 2 quantity squared over a number equal to 1. And then since it is horizontal, that means that my a squared has to go underneath my x term. So 6 squared is 36. And then b goes underneath the y term. So 2 squared is 4. And then the last part of the directions tells us to find the domain and range. So my domain is left to right, so that'll be between the vertices. So -7 to 5. And then the range is between the co-vertices. So that will be from 0 to 4. Alright, so for our next set of problems, same directions. So why don't you go ahead and pause the video and see if you can figure out the answers to these next 3 problems. So I'm going to start again kind of by doing a sketch of my given information. So I'm going left 1, down 2 for the center. So this tells me my h and k. Here we are given a major axis of length 6. So the major axis has a length of 2a, so I'm going to set that equal to 6, which then means my a value is 3. And then it's telling me that I have an endpoint of the minor axis at 0, -2. So that would be here. Now, if we are dealing with the minor axis, that means that this represents a co-vertex. So since the co-vertex is to the left and right, that means that my vertices have to be up and down. So I know that the direction is going to be vertical. And then my B value is the distance from my center here to the co-vertex. So I'm going from -1 to 0. So that tells me that my B is 1. So now I should have enough information to write my equation. So this will be x plus 1 quantity squared over a number plus y plus 2 quantity squared over a number, and then equals 1. And then since it's vertical, the bigger number has to go underneath my y, so my a. So 3 squared is 9, and then 1 squared is just 1. So technically, I don't have to write this over 1. I could leave it like this. But if you want to put it over 1 so that you know you found all your information, you can do that. And then the last part, we are finding the domain and range. So domain is left to right. So as I'm looking at this, since I know I'm 1 away on my co-vertex here, I also have to be 1 away on this side. So that means that it's going to be from -2 to 0 for the domain. And then my range, since my A is 3, I have to count up 3 from my center and down 3 from the center. So if my center is at -2 and I count down, -2 minus 3 is -5. And then if I count up, -2 plus 3 is 1. So this will be my answer to number 6. So for the next example, again, I'm going to start by sketching the information that is given to me. So we are going left 8 and then up 4. So that is one of the vertices. And then right 4, up 4 for the other one. So since my vertices are to the left and right of each other, I can tell the direction right away. This is going to be horizontal. And then the distance from vertex to vertex is a distance of 2a. So if I'm going from -8 to 4, that is a distance of 12. So that means A is 6. And then the other piece of information that is given are the foci. So we are going left 3, up 4. And left 1, up 4. Oops. Okay. So the center has to be right in the middle, either between the two vertices or the two foci. So if I'm going from -3 to -1, that is a distance of 2. So if I cut that in half, so that's 2c, that would be 1. So I know my c value is 1. And then that means that my center would have to be right in the middle, which is going to have to be at -2, 4. So now I know my H, my K, my A, and the direction. So if I wanted to, I can start writing my equation. So I would have x plus 2 squared over a number plus y minus 4 squared over a number, and then equals 1. And since I know it's vertical and I have my a, that means that a squared has to go underneath my x value since it's horizontal. So 6 squared will be 36. And then now I just need to figure out my b value. So since I know a and c, that tells me to use the equation c squared equals a squared minus b squared. So c squared, so 1 squared is 1, and then 6 squared is 36. And then that means I'm just solving this equation for my b squared. So I'm going to choose to add my b squared over, so it becomes positive. And then at the same time, I'm going to subtract my 1. So 36 minus 1 is 35. And then I don't need to worry about taking the square root of this since I need it for the b squared part for the equation. So this will be 35. And then the question is asking for the domain and range. So the domain is between the two vertices, since that's from left to right. So it's going to be from -8 to 4. And then for the range, that'll be between the co-vertices. So now I need to take the square root of this. So b is the square root of 35. And then I'm not able to simplify that any further, so I'm just going to leave it like that. And then I would have to add that to the y value of my center, since my co-vertices will be up and down from each other. So the range for this is going to be 4 minus the square root of 35, comma, and then 4 plus the square root of 35. Okay. Now if you haven't had a chance to work on 8, go ahead and pause the video, and then you can also pause it to work on 9 and 10. So again, starting with my sketch. So for my vertices, I am going to the right 3 up 2. And then to the right 3 down 14. So let me adjust my graph here, since I'm going to be vertical. All right, so back to my first vertex. So right 3 up 2. And then right 3 down 14. So right away, I know that my ellipse has to be vertical, since my vertices are up and down from each other. And then my 2a is equal to the distance between the two vertices. So if I'm going from 14 up to 2, that is a distance of 16. And then if I solve for a, that will give me 8. And then I can also find the center right away. So since I know halfway in between is 8 spaces, I'm just going to start at one vertex and count 8 towards the other. So if I'm at -14 and I'm counting 8 towards the other, that is going to put my center at -6. Okay, so that means that my center has to be on this x value of 3, and then the y will be -6. So that's my h and k. And then the other piece of information that it gives me is the co-vertices. So that is left 1 down -6. And then we are going over 7 down -6. So this distance here then is my b value, since I know where my center is, or I can find the distance between -1 to 7. So if I did it that way, that means 2b is equal to 8, so then b would have to be 4. And now I have all the information I need to write my equation. So I will have x minus 3 squared over a number plus y plus 6 squared over a number equals 1. And since it's vertical, my a squared goes underneath y, so I'm squaring my 8 to get 64. And then squaring b to get 16. And then for the domain, so that's left to right, so that's between the two co-vertices. So this will be from -1 to 7. And then the range is vertical, so that'll be between the two vertices. So from -14 to 2. All right, number 9, starting with the center. So I already know my HK. It tells me the length of the minor axis is 4. So if it's the minor axis, that is 2b. So then that means that my b has to be 2. And then it's giving an end point of the vertex. So I'm going to do a little sketch here. So for the center, I'm going to the right 5 up 2. And then for the vertice, I'm not going left or right, but I am going up 2. So that's my vertex. So then that means that this distance right here is a. So if I'm going from 0 to 5, that means that my a is 5. And since I know that this is the vertex and it's to the left of the center, that tells me that the direction has to be horizontal. So I should be able to start writing my equation now that I have the center, A, B, and the direction. So this will be x minus 5, quantity squared over a number, plus y minus 2, quantity squared over a number, equals 1. And then since it's horizontal, a squared, so my 5 squared goes underneath my x. So this will be 25, and then 2 squared is 4. And then for the domain, so domain is left to right, so it's going to have to be between my vertices. So I already know one of them, so my x value here is 0. And then to figure out the x on this side, I would have to count 5 more this direction. So I'm going to add 5 to the x of my center. So that's going to be 10. And then my range is this way, so I'm going to have to use my b value. So I'm adding and subtracting 2 from the y of my center. So if I subtract, 2 minus 2 is 0, and then 2 plus 2 is 4. All right, we're going to do one more practice problem, and then that will conclude our section over ellipses. So I'm going to start by doing the sketch. So for my first vertex, we're not going anywhere, left or right, and then we are going up to 10. And then the second vertex is at 0, 2. So right away I know that this is vertical since my vertices are up and down from each other. And then I can find the center. So first let me find my A. So remember 2A is the distance between the two vertices. So if I'm counting from 2 to 10, that will be 8, which means that A is 4. So I'm going to pick one vertex and count 4 towards the other. And that will give me my center. So if I'm starting at 2 and I count 4 more, that will be 6. So the center will be at 0, 6, which is my H and K. And then, let's see, it is also giving me the foci. So one is at 0, 8, and the other is at 0, 4. So my center is still in the middle, so that's good. And then from one of the foci to the center is my C. So that means C is going to have to be 2. So I have some information where I can start my equation. So I have my H is 0, K is 6. So this means I will just have x squared, since I don't have a number to go with it, over a number, plus y minus 6 squared over a number equal to 1. And then since it's vertical, my A has to go underneath the y. So 4 squared is 16. And then I'm missing my B value. So I'm going to have to use my A and C to figure that out. So remember, this is when we use C squared equals A squared minus B squared. So 2 squared is 4. A squared is 16 minus B squared. So I'm going to choose to add the B squared to make it positive. And then at the same time, I'm going to subtract my 4. So 16 minus 4 is 12. So I need the 12 for the equation. And then I will need to take the square root of it to figure out my domain and range. Now, if I didn't need the domain and range, then I wouldn't have to worry about that part. So B is equal to the square root of 12. So I'm thinking of that as 4 times 3. And then the square root of 4 is 2. And then 3 stays inside that radical. All right, so domain is left to right. So that means it's this way. So since my vertices are up and down, that tells me I need to use my co-vertices. So I'm going to add and subtract my B value to the x of my center. So 0 minus 2 squared root of 3 is negative 2 squared root of 3. And then 0 plus 2 squared root of 3 is positive 2 squared root of 3. And then range is up and down, so that's going to be between my two vertices. So my y's are between 2 and 10. So this will be my answer for that last question. And like I said, that will also conclude our section over ellipses.